having a whole lot of fun.
Okay. Oh, 3:03. Okay, we are starting the Single Family Design Board meeting for July 28th.
Thank you. I'll proceed with roll call. Chair Lewis?
Yes.
Board Member Graffitti?
Yes.
Board Member Moslahy?
Yes.
We have quorum.
Our first item is general public comment.
Thank you, Chair Lewis. I'll start with general public comment. At this time, I do not have any slips for general public comment. However, if anyone wishes to make a comment, they may fill one out and bring it to me. I see no one in the audience moving to do so. And now I will turn my attention to virtual attendance. And at this time, we have no hands raised for general public comment virtually. And we did not receive any written correspondence for general public comment. So I thought I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Lewis.
Okay, next is approval of the minutes from the full board meeting on July 14th. Okay, I'll move to approve the minutes from the full board meeting on July 14th.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we'll take a vote. Board Member Graffitti?
Yes.
Board Member Moslahy?
Yes.
Chair Lewis?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next is approval of the minutes from the consent meeting on July 14th. That was my consent, and I reviewed them. Oh, no, that wasn't. That was Sherry's. Which one did I give you?
Yeah, so you gave us July 7th, and something that staff and I actually noticed for today's hearing was that we did not agendize the approval of the July 7th consent minutes, even
Okay.
though we ratified it at the last hearing.
Okay.
So unfortunately, that's something we're going to have to put on the future agenda.
future one, okay.
Yeah, because we can't do it right now. So for today, we can only approve the July 14th draft
Okay.
minutes currently.
Okay.
And we apologize for that.
So with Sherry absent, she didn't give us any changes to the minutes, so I'll move to approve the minutes from the consent meeting on July 14th.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay, we'll take a vote. Board Member Moslahy?
Yes.
Board Member Graffitti?
Yes.
Chair Lewis?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, next is ratification of action taken on the consent calendar today, July 28th.
You know, I did not actually get the news about.
Do you want me to? I was
Yes,
present.
that
Okay.
would be helpful. Thank
Okay.
you, Board Member Graffitti.
You can formalize this as need be, but
Thank you.
for item number 1, the minor zoning exception at 628 San Pasqual Street, the MZE was granted. For item 2, this was an item for project design approval and final approval at 109 South Aliso Street. A project design approval was granted, but the project was continued on for final approval with conditions. And for item number 3, this item was for concept review at 648 Roberto Ave. This item was continued on with supportive comments.
And just for clarification on Roberto, was that for a modification towards the staff hearing officer?
So that was actually in the initial agenda. There were 2 front setback modifications requested, but staff had let the board know that the applicant had gone through another process and those no longer needed to
Got
be
it.
granted. So
Okay.
it was just an aesthetic design review process.
Brilliant, thank you.
Okay, next is announcements, future agenda items, appeals. Oh, wait, sorry, we didn't ratify.
yeah,
I'm
let's
sorry.
ratify that.
I
Yeah,
moved
appreciate
to
it.
ratify the action taken at the consent calendar today, July 28th.
Cool, I'll second.
Okay, we'll take a vote. Board Member Graffitti?
Yes.
Board Member Moslahy?
Yes.
Chair Lewis?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, now on to announcements.
Yes, I have no announcements this time around and have no subcommittee reports to report.
Okay. Our first item then is a continued item here for final approval, 575 Bramer Ranch. Do you want to read the description?
Sure can. This is a proposal to permit 700 square feet of as-built additions and construct 557 square feet of new additions to an existing 4,749 square foot three-story residence and attached 649 square foot three-car garage. Project includes replacement of all windows and doors, exterior material alterations, new pool, and expansion of the existing covered patio and existing deck. The proposed total of 5,508 square feet of development on a 2.5 acre lot is 94%, the maximum guideline for lot area ratio. Final approval is requested, and the project requires substantial conformance to the plans that received the PDA on May 5th, 2025.
Okay, welcome. You'll have 15 minutes to present. If you don't mind starting with the minutes from project design approval and then going through any things that have changed in the drawing since then.
Sure. My name is David Watkins, project designer for the project. Thank you for your guys' time. Let's make sure I can get these right ones.
There you go. I think I will start with the
Yeah.
highlighted motion.
There you go. So no other changes to the drawings except exploring these rails. So I'll just jump into it on the elevations first, and then we can look at the details. How do I go to the old plans too for reference? Okay. So at the last hearing, we were proposing to replace this existing vertical non-compliance, like 34 inches above the floor, finished floor, railing with a horizontal flat bar railing. There was a few examples of it in the neighborhood, and then even after our last hearing, I went and looked at it some more, and there's probably maybe 12 or so scattered throughout that neighborhood where they have it. So it's something that is in that area, but given the feedback from you guys, Eric was thinking about it a little bit more too, and these kind of rails for kids, you know, they can climb it, even though you don't want them to, so he just thought it's easier to kind of do a blend of that. And so what we propose is a mostly vertical rail system. There's a step off with the flat horizontal bar at the bottom, and then that same repeat off the top there, 4 inches off the top. Otherwise, it's completely vertical, 3/4 inch bar, same materials before. And then if you guys want, I can go to the detail to show that too, if you'd like. Anything else in the drawings that were updated is just incidental stuff, cleanups, no height change, no footprint change, material change, or anything like that. And here we go. So this detail number 3 here on A802 is kind of an elevation view here on the right, and then a section cut through there to see. So still with this before, 2-inch bar by 1 inch at the top, repeat off the second drop down, and then verticals spaced out. And that was it, though. Everything else has been the same detailing that we proposed last time. Same landscaping as last time, no change in footprints or anything like that.
Okay, perfect. You'll have 12 minutes, 12 and a half minutes left if you need them later. We'll move to public comment.
Thank you, Chair Lewis. I'll start with in-person public comment. At this time, I do not have any slips for this particular project. If anyone wishes to make a comment, they may fill one out and bring it to me. I see no one in the audience moving to do so, and now we will turn our attention to virtual attendance. And at this time, we have no hands raised for comment on this particular item, and we did not receive any written correspondence. So at that, I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Lewis.
Okay, we will start with questions from the board. Board Member Mosley, any questions?
No, I have no questions.
No questions.
Okay, we'll move to comments. Any comments?
Can we go back to the minutes, please? That was the highlighted part, and then can we scroll down? There's nothing else.
No, the rest were the generic.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
I think the project has come a long way, and as we commented at the last time, as far as it was possible to upgrade this house, it has been done, and according to like not having the visibility that much from the public, we all supported it. And that was the only thing that we thought the railing needs to be updated, and I think it's appropriate and it's more relevant to the original design of the house. And I think it's ready to
Okay.
approve.
Board Member Graffiti?
Agree.
Okay. Does anyone want to make a motion?
Sure. I'll make a motion to grant final approval as the project substantially conforms to the plans that received PDA on May 5th, 2025.
Second?
Okay, we'll take a vote. Board Member Graffiti?
Yes.
Board Member Moslehi?
Yes.
Chair Lewis?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you.
Great. Congratulations. And, oh, and then can we turn the, yeah, and I just want to announce the appeal period. If you hear anything in 10 days, we'll let you know. But given that we had no public comment, feel free to reach out to me for when you're ready to submit a building and safety. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
And I believe the second item that we have scheduled, Mountain Avenue, is scheduled for 3:25.
So perfect. We can
So,
get started if we have the applicant here. Are either any of you the applicant?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I see someone walking in.
I think we might have about 10 minutes.
I think before we take a recess, could someone see if they're
Sure.
outside?
Yeah, I'll be right back.
Okay. Thanks. Okay. We're early, but we're ready. So if you guys are ready, we will be ready. But if you think 5 minutes, we'll take a 5-minute recess. Okay, then we will take a 5-minute recess. We'll start back at 3:20. 6:05. We are back from recess. Are we recording again? Okay.
Okay.
So our second item is a new item here for concept review. Would you like to read it?
Yes, I sure can. So this is a proposal for a new 1,897 square foot two-story home with an attached 538 square foot two-car garage on a vacant parcel. Landscaping and site work are proposed along with a detached accessory building comprised of a 731 square foot accessory dwelling unit and a 249 square foot garage. The ADU is not under purview of the board, excluding the attached garage. A driveway entrance is proposed to the adjoining property, 1911 Mountain Avenue Drive. The total proposed 2,684 square feet on a 7,007 square foot lot is 91% of the maximum required floor area ratio. The FAR with the ADU is 116. No final appealable decision will take place at this hearing, and neighborhood preservation findings will be required when the project is reviewed for project design approval. And I just wanted to provide some quick staff comment for the FAR. I believe on the agenda today, let me just make sure I'm putting it correctly. No, so on the plans that were posted with the agenda, the FAR is a little bit, it's shown as a little bit less. I think it's about like 87%. That's because I requested the applicant to show the FAR that excluded the ADU garage. And so when we're calculating FAR, we actually do include the ADU garage, even though it's attached. So that's why in this scope of work before you, it's 91%, but the 116% is cohesive with staff and what the plans say. And I also wanted to note that the plans that we're looking at today, they haven't been plan checked yet. They were just submitted for a conceptual review, so we're just looking for broad comments about siding, mass, bulk, scale, and general design and compatibility with the neighborhood, so that the applicant can take those comments and resubmit back to us for another completeness cycle. Thank you.
Okay, welcome. If you can all state your name for the record, and you'll have 15 minutes to present.
Okay, I'm Jarrett Gorin from Vanguard Planning.
Sergio Macheo with Vanguard Planning.
Chantal with Lissol Design Studio.
Great, so let's get their photos up. So I'll just want to do a quick walkthrough of like the site and the neighborhood and everything. So this is a aerial view of our site. And then what we did here is it's an aerial view of our site with the footprint of the house superimposed on it to just give you an idea how that fits in with all the development that's around it. Then down here, there's just some different views of the site, so you can see it better in like an oblique view than straight down aerial, so you can see what's going on around us. So I'll just run through those really quick. This is looking north towards 101 from sort of that hill back behind us, so you can see what's going on there. The house is gonna go right in here. Again, this is our house is gonna go right in here. So that's what all those are. And then we just went up and we tend to just go up and down the street and take pictures of everything that's there. This lot isn't, this is like one whole lot behind the house. It's on the street. So not really visible from the street, but we always do this. So this is sort of what's up and down. This is over on our side of the street. I think this is our next door neighbor. And that's like right next door to him. So that's what we have going on there. We had a neighborhood meeting on this. We invited everybody over to look at our plans. That was back in early June. We were originally scheduled to come before your board in June. So we did this about, I don't know, a week to 10 days ahead of that hearing. We had two groups of people come by and got some feedback. It ranged from supportive to openly hostile. I would say that our favorite comment comes from our neighbor Mike, he lives next door to a two-story house, and he has two-story houses developed on his property. But he said that there's no way that a two-story house can go on this property, and it would be inappropriate for the neighborhood and all. So anyway, we thought that was interesting feedback from that particular commenter. this is the property I'm talking about. So again, like this is us, and I think, you know, a lot of one-story homes in this neighborhood, but a lot of two-story homes right in this neighborhood. And again, this was that commenter's property. And, you know, going down the street here, we have two-story homes next to us. And again, we're back one whole lot. So I'm not saying there's any problem at all with having a two-story home that I need to sort of justify it. I'm just trying to give you some context on that. So, one final thing on the land use stuff. This is an SB 330 project, so it's subject to some narrow scope in terms of what the city can review on it. And Sebastian can explain that more if you've got questions, or if you have questions for me, I can explain that more. So I'm going to let Sergio and Chantal take you through the details of our plan.
Okay. Hello? Okay, I'm going to start off on basically the sheet A30, which is the section, to illustrate basically the overall massing strategy that we went with this house, the single-family house. Two things. It's a two-story, and on the second story, you have all the bedrooms. What we're doing here is stepping back the second floor significantly from the property line, both on the west side and on the north side here. Going back to this one. Two things. One, to meet all the solar access requirements, minimum requirements, and also to create privacy for the upstairs bedrooms. I want to also point out on the west, going back to A2 on the west elevation. This is the west elevation facing property to the west, of course. All the windows are rather small in size to maintain privacy, both for the owner and for the neighbor. Next, I want to jump over to the render view. And I'll stop here for a second. This is the render view looking south as you enter the property through the driveway, the easement here. But just to show the overall massing of the second story and the ADU, which is not part of this review, but just to show in context what it would be like with the landscape also. Both between the buildings, creating a nice buffer between those two and a buffer between the neighbors. With that, I'll leave it up to Chantal for talk a little bit about the landscaping.
Okay, so for the landscaping, we wanted to keep it minimal and simple. We wanted to, relate to the architecture. So I chose succulents and a mixture of ground covers. They are also spaced widely for fire resistance, and they're low fuel. We wanted to add some buffer, like you said, between the buildings and also the neighbors, so we have some hedging in there. And yeah, that's kind of about it.
Just along those lines, so we're in a high fire hazard area, so there's, we're kind of limited in what we can do in terms of trees. Trees have to be a minimum of 15 feet at the canopy of the tree from the structures. So we had one location that we could comply with that, and we put a tree there. Just about everywhere else, we had to stick with the lower materials, and all those materials are approved materials off the city fire department's list for high fire hazard.
Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes, that concludes our presentation.
Okay, I didn't see that. Were they out of time, or did they have some remaining? They had some remaining. Okay. We'll say approximately how much? You didn't see?
I would say
5 minutes?
Yeah, I'd say they have about 7 minutes
Okay,
left of
okay.
speaking time.
So if you need it later, you have that. And we'll move to public comment.
Thank you, Chair Lewis. I'll start with in-person public comment. At this time, I do not have any slips. However, if anyone wishes to make a public comment at this time, you may do so. I see no one in the audience moving to do so. Did you want? Please come up.
I'm not prepared. I wasn't prepared to make a comment, but in
Okay,
light of.
hold on one moment. Turn on your speaker.
Yeah, let's get it ready first.
Would staff like to state the two that we did receive prior? The board has read through those, but just for the record, which ones those are?
I don't have them. Sorry. Let me see if I can.
Yeah, if you can give us 1 minute, unless you have that information
I
handy,
can
Chair Lewis.
Read through that. So we received public comment from Michael Myers and Andrea Warren, received when this was agendized for June 16th. That's the only written public comment that the board has received and read.
Right, thank you for the clarification. And with that, Joni, you want to go ahead and...
There we go. Okay, you have 2
Okay.
minutes to speak. Go ahead,
I
please.
didn't prepare a
Please step
public
up to the mic.
statement. However, in light of the fact that Jarrett has chosen to call my actions at the community meeting hostile, I thought I would point out that I don't agree with that. I don't think I was hostile. I simply was recognizing that they are proposing to put a two-story building along the entire length, majority of the length of our property line, according to the plans, within roughly 5 feet of our property line. Second story having approximately 8 or 9, if you count the two sides of the master bedroom windows that will look directly into our property. So we will lose 100% of the privacy in our backyard for both 1917 and 1918 Halcyon Lane, which is the back property. And yes, there is a two-story building on the back property. That is something that Grandpa built in 1955. The house is a single story that was converted back when my uncle was born in the 40s. Nevertheless, I understand that that progress happens, that things are going to happen. And so what I would like to propose to Jarrett and his crew is that let's work together and be cohesive and be friendly with one another. Let's not point fingers at each other and accuse each other of things that will separate our ability to work together as a community and a neighborhood, okay? I want harmony in our neighborhood, just like the next tenants that are going to live in these structures will. And so I've got some great ideas that, depending on how the approval process goes for you guys, that could be a great compromise for all parties, including our neighbors at 1902 Mountain Avenue. And that's it. That's all I wanted to say. I just want us to work together and get along.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Not yet, sorry.
if anyone else would like to speak?
Did you get my email that I sent across again?
I'll chat, but if you would like to just make a public comment, or I'm not able to distribute, that's emailed to me 5 minutes before.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, so I'll just highlight some of the big concerns I had.
Sorry, can you state your name and address for the record?
Yeah, Rob Perez, 1903 Mountain Avenue.
Did you get that address?
1903.
Okay, thanks.
Can I go? Oh, cool. Yeah, so certainly not opposed to them adding a new addition to the house, because I understand you bought a property, you're going to do that. The biggest concerns around the size and the scale and what you're doing to the historical or the prior property. So there's one is privacy. Obviously, Mike mentioned it before, but they're going to be looking straight into our backyard, so you're going to get rid of privacy for, let's say, 80% of our backyard space. Another one is around the number of occupants that may live there, plus the ADUs. When we talk about what it used to be, which was 2 people living in that one residence, to going to maybe 15 plus people that could live in both residences, it's just a big growth, our number of people that can end up living in that property, which can add to parking issues and noise issues and all the other. Another concern is around the mature trees in that property. There's 2 or 3 large mature trees that maybe 5. On that tree, you can see in the satellite images, much bigger than the 4-inch diameter, I think, requirement on notifying. But concerned they're going to get rid of that, just like they cut down the huge palm tree in the front yard. I don't know if they got approval for that or not, but that was seemed pretty historic to me, so sad to see that go. Other concerns around light pollution. Obviously, if you're adding 2 stories, that light from that other addition is going to go straight into our backyard as well. So it's going to also take away from the view that we currently have, which we enjoy all of the green space in the backyard, which is sad to see go because we like where we live. We like the peace and calm we have in the neighborhood. And I just don't want to see that change much. And like I said, I totally understand they want to build something there, but the size and scale just seems much bit too big for that property. Anything
All
else?
right, thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we'll record it as separate public comment. So, yeah, go ahead and come on up and say your name for the record.
All right, so I am Hillary Mills Perez. Also, I'm Rob's wife. So I live at 1903 Mountain Avenue. When I'm looking at the picture that they had up of the rendering of that house, it looks like something you'd find on the Riviera. It doesn't look like a house that should be on the west side. It looks massive. I mean, you have trees in that image too, and you're just saying like, oh, we can't put trees in. So it doesn't make any sense. The size and scale of your proposed house is just it's so big. It's so big. Our house is only 1,100 square feet. I think it's like 1,150. And our other neighbors, Chris and Andrea, their house is not much bigger than ours either. It's yeah, it's pretty crazy that you guys just, you think that you can build something that's basically 2,700 square feet on a 7,000 foot lot. Like, it just doesn't match the west side. The surrounding homes in the block are no more than around 1,800 square feet, including their garages, even the homes with the double stories. So they're not that big. And this would be huge. I think this would be one of the biggest houses on the whole street. Again, yeah, I want to go over the owner and developer has shown a lack of concern for preserving the qualities of this neighborhood, not only by the size and scale of the proposal, but also by removing large mature trees on the property, which I don't think they had permit for. There was a Canary Island palm that was about 2 feet in diameter that they just removed without any comment, nothing. This tree had been there for decades. So yeah, I mean, I don't think that this house matches the neighborhood at all. It's much too big. I don't oppose building there, of course, as it makes sense. But the size, scale, compatibility of the neighborhood, it does not match.
All right, thank you. So I
Thank
think you
you.
said you had about 7 minutes if you'd like to use that time now or later.
Excuse me, can I close public
Oh,
comment?
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Lewis. Okay, at this time, I'm going to turn my attention to virtual attendance, and we do not have any hands raised for virtual attendance. And we have reported, excuse me. Frog in the throat. Excuse me, we have reported that the comments from Michael Myers and Andrea Warren, which was written correspondence, will now be transferred to this particular meeting, so we will put those on record. And at that, I can turn it back over to you, Chair Lewis.
Thank you. So if we can put back their remaining time on the clock, is that possible? I don't know if we can, I think we said 7. Perfect. So you can use that time now if you would like to, or later, so.
Oh, when would I use it later?
After our questions,
Oh,
if there's
okay.
more then.
Yeah, I mean, I think because we would just be responding to your questions when you ask us questions, right? So, okay, I'll use some of the time now. I guess I used some just now. Our second story is set back around 15 feet from the neighboring property to the west. And I just want to point out that, like, your good neighbor guidelines, 15 feet is sort of the limit that you strive for open decks in terms of privacy. This is an enclosed second story with basically secondary windows, like windows in bathrooms and things that look out that way. So in terms of privacy, we understand the concern, and we really worked hard in the design to address that up front. All of this speculation about how many people are going to live here is sort of, it's irrelevant to your purview, but I just, the idea that the people that would live here is a radically different method of living and use than all of these people have in their own homes. Like Mr. Perez doesn't have 6 people living in his house. He has 2 people living in his house. And we expect similar patterns to be in the house that we're developing here. But regardless, again, that's outside of your purview. We don't cover how many people are living somewhere. And same with like parking and those kinds of things. We're talking about aesthetics here. In terms of the trees, you can't develop anything on this site without cutting down trees, most of them, because you have to comply with the fire requirements, and that's what's really generating that. So this other palm tree they're talking about isn't on this property, it's on the property in front of us, which we also own, but that's a completely separate development, isn't subject to design review at all, and palm trees are not protected trees in the city of Santa Barbara. So that's what's going on with that. You know, in terms of the size of the house, it's larger than the houses immediately next to us, but there's other houses in the neighborhood that are pretty large. Directly across Pedregosa Street, there's a pretty significant 2-story house, which is a full stacked 2-story house. It doesn't have the second story stepped back significantly, at least as I remember looking at it from the street. And, you know, we've got to look at our FARs, and again, if you look at the FAR of the house itself, you know, we added the garage of the ADU into that, and you don't count the ADU itself, obviously, but if you were to just look at the FAR of our house without sticking the garage space from a different building onto it, I think we're down at 85% of the city's FAR, and the city's guidelines say you should strive to be 85% of FAR. And of course, that doesn't mean, you know, make sure you do that much, but it means make sure that you're kind of in that area and trying not to exceed it in a house. So we're completely in alignment with the city's FAR guidelines. And so those guidelines inform us that our size house is not too big for a 7,000 square foot lot. It's 85% of what you're allowed to do on a lot of that size, the house itself. And yeah, if you stick the garage onto it, we're still at 91%, so we're still under. So those are my responses to the comments, and we can answer any questions that you have.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to questions, which I will start us out with. So on the site plan, do you have one that shows the neighbors on either side of where those houses are located in your set at all?
We don't have it on the site plan, but we have an aerial photo that
That would be
shows that.
helpful.
This is a straight up and down view.
Okay.
So let me go to the next view actually, so you can see it.
Thank you, that one
Yeah,
is
why don't you
helpful.
zoom out a little bit so
well,
actually
if-
can see
yeah.
everything.
If you zoom in just so we can just see the two next to it.
We lose
Yeah.
the east-west when we zoom in too much.
Yeah,
So.
zoom in and center your residence.
Yeah, we'll move it around.
There you go. Okay, so can you walk us through what we're seeing in the neighboring properties right next to it?
So what we have over here, this is the house. This is the 1-story portion of the house. This is the 2nd-story portion, and then this is Mr. Meyer's property over here. So that's his the original house on the property, which that was once a 1-story house, and then they built that a 2nd story, and then this one was actually built as a 2-story house in the 50s. So, you know, pretty decent separation between those houses and anything we're doing. Although, yeah, the yard area is next to us, but you know.
But there's a path or something that goes.
Yeah,
between-
he has a pathway. So he also has 2 separate lots, and it's all sort of developed as one compound though. So they get access to this house in the back via this pathway from Mountain Avenue back to that house.
Got it. Okay.
So that's what's going on there. This is the other property that we own.
Okay.
Okay, and then let's see, how do we go down here? And then this is, I think, Mr. Perez's property over on the corner. And again, on that one, you know, I listened to the comments, but I'm not understanding them super clearly because this is his backyard and our 2-story house is over here, and it's catty corner from that, and this is a 1-story.
Sorry, no comments outside of this. Thank
Yeah, it's hard for me to understand why this would be a significant light impact or any kind of an impact to this yard that's, 85 feet away from it over here, catty corner. So that's what I don't understand about it. This is a one-story structure. This photo package predates when we added that. We were, since it was an ADU, often they make you process those under a separate permit. So we had separated those out, but it's included on all the plans you have today. So that's right in here, and that's a one-story structure that is less than 16 feet tall at the ridge. So that's what's the closest thing to any of these adjoining properties. And then this is the next property over. I think the other letter you got was from this neighbor. And so this is their backyard next to our one-story structure, and then our two-story house is on the opposite side of our lot from that. And then back here is open space. So these are much larger lots. They have gigantic houses on them. They're separated from us by this nice oak tree open space buffer that's in here.
Okay. I'm sorry, we can't have any comments. It's, okay. Inside, please. Okay. So will you walk us through on maybe your landscape site plan? Is there any privacy hedging or fences on either of the property lines?
Yeah, Chantal, you want to cover that? I'm going to go try to find the sheet here. Yeah, why don't you do it, Sergio?
So yes, we do have some privacy hedging along the two sides. Where the open spaces, we do not have any hedging there because it's actually a really pretty view. So, yes.
What's the height of them? Sorry.
Oh, well, they're Prunus ilicifolia, and so I think they can get up to like 10 feet tall, but I know there's regulations on hedge height.
Okay. And then are there any street photos where we can see the driveway and the proposed gate?
Look for the one of 1911. I think it might show that. That kind of, it barely shows it. So, yeah, it shows it a little bit. So the driveway is going to go sort of between this fence and the next fence over here. And we've got an 18-foot wide easement we're putting over the property. That's going to have a 16-foot driveway, which is the minimum allowed by fire, and some additional space for hedges along the side of the driveway between us and the adjacent property on Mountain. And the gate that's proposed is set back like 20 feet or so from the street. And we don't know what the gate design is going to be yet. We haven't really looked into that at this stage.
Okay. Both of those will be nice for us to have at the next review. A street elevation that shows where the driveway cuts through, and any side condition that's happening there next to the property line. Because the ADU is outside of our purview, it may help our board to conceptualize it as already existing, and noticing the rest of it of how you might be developing it. And one of the things that I see is a lot of hardscape, especially in that rendering. And so I'm assuming a lot of that is for turning radius, but were there other materials considered, and what exactly is that hardscape?
So it is exactly because of turning radius, and we ran the city's vehicle template on this. We have 3 different spaces. Could you show the actual site plan again real quick? Or the landscape site plan? So we ran all the vehicle templates on this, and we have 3 different spaces that need to be able to, we have to drive head out of this property because of the length of the driveway. So we have 3 different spaces that all have to make turnouts. We minimize this as much as we can. We tried to get creative by using the actual driveway of the ADU to provide turnout space for the 2 spaces coming out of the main house, to avoid having to provide additional turnout space. So we've kind of gotten it down as small as we can, and we're proposing just a nice permeable paver. We would certainly be interested in, like, different paver materials, or when I say different, I mean multiple paver materials that might break up the single large color field that one driveway is. But this was conceptual, so we haven't put tons of thought into that level of detail yet.
Okay, and then could you walk us through the style of the proposed ADU? So one is kind of understanding why they both match and why you wanted to do that, and then how the style might work with the neighborhood.
Yeah, so we just wanted to do a simple board and bat with, we get to use thicker walls than a lot of the existing homes have out there. We have to use thicker walls to comply with Title 24. So we have a little bit deeper reveals around the windows. We just wanted to use divided light windows instead of single pane windows. Our client likes the white. This is shown as like a pure white. We probably would end up using some sort of a more off-white. We would welcome your guidance on that. We want to use high-quality garage doors, not just your metal Home Depot, but like something that is a nicer wood-looking door. The ADU, we're matching it to the architecture of the house. So we just used the same materials on it that we were using on the house. And also the city, I don't know if this still applies under current state law, but the city's architectural guidelines for ADUs are that if you're within 20 feet, you should match the architecture of the main structure. So that's another reason why we did that.
Okay.
We tried to do a couple things on the house where we minimize the pitch of the roof. We're trying to keep the height down as much as possible. I think we're under 25 feet. And could you go to the section that shows the west neighbor as well? We also our finished floor is down a couple of feet. The property drops off. And so our finished floor is actually down a couple of feet from the adjacent neighbor. So, from over on that side, it's going to be more like 22 and a half maybe, or a 22 foot tall at the ridge. And of course, the ridge is set back. I mean, our wall is 15 feet. The ridge is set back another 10 feet. So it's 25 feet away from that property.
Okay, and then on the second floor plan, if you could go through the windows that were noted by the neighbor and show us where they are and their uses. It appears that most of them are in restrooms, but it'd be nice to walk through and see those.
Sure. Sergio, you want to go? Well, I'll go over it since I love to hear myself talk. Okay, so what we've got going on here is the news. Okay. These are going to be windows, like high windows that are up above end tables in a bedroom. So if you're in this bedroom, you're looking at the mountains here, you're looking off into the, east light over here. This is a little window up above a toilet. So you're not standing right next to this window staring down into the neighbor's yard. This is the largest window we have on the back of the house, and that's just so that the sill could be low enough so that you can enjoy a view if you're in the bathtub. But again, you've got a bathtub between you and that window, so you're not standing at this window peering down into the neighbor. Here's another little window above a toilet, same as the other one. And then these again are little windows up above end tables. So the primary windows in these rooms, we did this on purpose, was we located them so that they did not have direct views into the neighboring property.
Okay. And then, could you clarify the amount of space that's between the two-story house and the ADU garage?
It's about 7 or 8 feet, I think. Okay, so it's 6 feet wall to wall at the tightest dimension. So when you get next to our chimney, it gets down to about 6 feet. And as you get closer to the driveway where you're looking at it from, again, we have the entry there, so we have additional relief out of that. Although we did want a covered entry and have a pretty significant roof kind of to create a porch there so that we don't like people to walk down side yards to get their entries most of the time. So we wanted a prominent front door on that one. And then on the ADU, there wasn't really a way to avoid walking through a side yard to get to the entry.
Okay. I think that's it for my questions. Board Member Graffiti?
I just want to have clarity. read and seen so many different FARs, and it sounds like we don't necessarily have maybe a formal answer, but I know there are certain triggers that change once we hit that 85%
Correct.
required FAR pre-ADU. So I don't know if staff has additional comments. I just want, I saw 83% somewhere. I know in here it says 91. From our standpoint, what is the,
Yes, so from our standpoint, it's 91%,
Okay.
given the plans.
Okay.
And I'm not sure, I can't access my screen here. I did forget to mention that we did want, I can't. Let's see if I can do this. Hold on, 1 second. We did want to ask for the FAR waiver since it is over 85, since it is over 85%. I
Okay.
forgot to mention that during
Got it.
staff comment.
Okay.
I apologize
So
for
when we
that
get into
oversight.
comments-
But
Okay.
yeah, during comments, if you would consider the FAR waivers and whether or not you feel that they're necessary
got
for,
it, okay.
for the home.
So I guess the question I have that I might answer is, I was just
Mm-hmm.
asking if there was a study on the 20 closest home FAR, but because we're at concept, your hope is to
Have
get that waived
Yeah,
for
correct.
future
Could we have our
meetings.
site plan back up? really?
Yes, go right ahead.
So I'm answering your question. I'll, if you have questions later or want to discuss that further, we
Yeah.
can. But the reason staff is suggesting that, and the reason we would ask for it as well, is we're taking 200 feet of a single car garage that's in another building, and we're adding that to the square footage of this house, and that's what's generating the 91 FAR. So it's a little bit of an unusual situation. The house itself is under 85%.
Okay,
its
so
own.
what is the number without that garage? Is that what's 83%?
Yes.
Okay.
So
That-
the
that is
option
correct.
then from our board is that if we think the garage of the ADU is taking up too much of the open space, that's what's tipping them into the
Okay.
85.
Correct, and
Okay.
yes, yeah, that's
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
Okay, that's helpful. I just want to confirm heights again. So I know we just went over this, but at the top of the second story, highest point, 24.9. However, because of what the finished floor is and how it sits lower, you're saying it reads more like a 22 to 23 foot max point ridgeline?
Yes, so
correct?
24.9 would be starting at our finished floor and going
Okay.
up. And then if you were to stand on the neighbor's property, which is ending up, it's 2 or 3 feet higher than our property is.
Okay.
So it would read slightly shorter. I mean, I don't think it's a significant difference,
Okay,
but
okay.
it's just a little
Got
shorter
it.
from
You
the neighbor's
just
property.
added, okay. And then can you just cover your plate height? So first floor plate height
9-1,
is 9.1, not 10.1. Okay.
9-1,
Okay. And what's your second foot?
8-6, oh, 8-7.
Okay. Okay. And then couple question. I'm really having a hard time understanding, and I'm going to put the Canary Island palm to the side because that's on a different property. The tree, which trees are being removed? I know in the rendering there was an oak tree in public comment that came up. It looked like in plan there's an oak tree existing to remain, but then that one cited as like 24
Yeah,
inches. So
I
I'm just, can you help me?
explain that.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
so there's a sequence of events here that's resulting in this.
Okay.
We submitted plans, well, actually, we submitted plans prior to our previous concept hearing, which was going to occur before we got the first completeness review on this project. We then got the completeness review, and the fire department brought up the compliant landscaping issue. So we updated everything on that, but in the renderings, we forgot to take out that one tree, and we noticed that after we had already submitted those. So if you go to the renderings, the oak tree that is in the front of the house, okay,
Yeah.
that tree won't be there, but this is a tree that's proposed in our landscape plan. And these are trees that are beyond the boundary
Right.
of our property in the area that's behind it. And again, we're showing that the best we can, but it's a rendering.
So Okay, so in the landscape plan, though, if you scroll up, there's an existing 24-inch oak to remain.
Yeah, it's not, that's an error. That
That
oak
is an
tree
error.
is
Okay.
not allowed to remain.
And then what, for mitigation, you're not recommending to replant the oak tree? Is it a different variety? Like, what are you recommending as a mitigation plan for that oak?
Well, the problem we have is we can't plant mitigation trees because they would not comply with fire regulations.
Can you remind us what the distance is
15 feet from the
From the-
canopy to the
from
building.
the canopy? Mhm.
Is that because this is in a special area?
It's
Because
in
I
a-
haven't heard, okay.
It's in a designated high fire hazard area.
Okay, can staff?
It's the coastal high fire hazard. It was a surprise to us too, but it is a designated high fire hazard area.
Okay, so the tree, though, that you're including in the driveway, so it seems like there's like one tree. What species is that?
It's an olive tree.
Okay, so you're not mitigating with another oak?
We could, is that on this fire department's approved list of trees?
Yes, yeah.
I would imagine that a
Yes,
native
yes,
oak
yeah.
would be, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'd be happy to do
Okay,
that.
but that wasn't like an arborist, usually there's a protocol where an arborist comes out and signs, and then they recommend what the mitigation plan is. So I guess that's where I'm just getting confused, and maybe it's just because this is a newer code I'm not familiar with.
It's fire department regulations
Okay.
and like regardless of how many trees they could recommend, we just don't have places on the site that we can do it.
Okay,
So
And I did want to just provide clarification through the chair to board member Gertfeidi, is that in the SFDB landscape guidelines, which are not the city ordinance, but in the guidelines, we usually require a 1-to-1 replacement ratio of trees before coming to the board, and that's a guideline. Places where there's disagreement between the guidelines and the code always prevails. I do not know the fire code well enough to understand
Okay.
the canopies.
Okay.
But that's why it's usually this assumption that trees will be properly mitigated. Now, I did want to clarify that as a SFDB, you are allowed to request arborist reports if you feel like it's
Okay.
necessary for tree preservation, since none of us here are expert biologists or arborists. Now through the design review process, again, these plans that we're looking at, I haven't plan checked them. We were going to provide more comment on getting more information about the tree removals
Okay.
and things like that. So if you have any considerations or if you want to leave any comment related to oak trees, native trees, you're more than welcome to.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm gonna pass the questions on to,
Okay, Board Member Moslehy?
Okay, I have some follow-up questions from the questions that was made. First one is at the property boundary, the hedges. You guys talked about the height of the proposed landscape. What's the height of it's an existing wood fence or it's a new proposed? And what's the height of that?
So there's an existing fence there that I think it's taller than your typical 6 foot. It's maybe 7 feet tall. I don't think it's an 8-foot fence existing. We're gonna have to replace a fair amount of that because we need to build a retaining wall along that side. And our intent was to a 6-foot wood fence on top of that retaining wall, unless our neighbor prefers a taller fence. I think we're allowed to go up to 8 feet under the city ordinance, but I don't know if you're gonna add the retaining wall to the 8 feet, or if in situations where you have a retaining wall, if you start from the high side. So 6 feet's what we were proposing.
And is it both sides, west and east?
Yes.
And on the back.
No, the back is going to be an open rail, just for view and transparency. Too.
You may want to update that on your planting plan. Or are you saying that it's a shorter wood fence, just in general?
We're on the back side,
Yeah.
the south side, next to
Right.
the open space. We want to have something shorter and open.
And more open rail. Okay, got it.
42 inches.
Okay.
Like as a guardrail.
Oh,
pretty much.
pardon the interruption. Sergio, can you just make sure you're speaking into the microphone when you're responding so we can get you? Thank you.
Thank you. Another follow-up question from the questions is that the west side windows, the small windows that you guys showed us on the elevations, what's the sill height for those, like the small ones?
Well, off the top of my head, let me go to the floor plan really quick so I can give you an accurate. So if you go to A, sill height is 4 feet.
4 feet, okay. And a clarification to the staff, is the garage that 91% of FAR, is the garage included in that 91%?
Yes, so that 91%, again, to clarify, includes the main residence, the attached garage to the main residence, and then the garage attached to the accessory dwelling unit, but not the ADU. And that's a total of 91%.
91%.
The 84% excludes the ADU garage.
Thank you. And another question is the roof material. I know you guys are at concept, but what's the proposed roof material?
We're thinking asphalt shingle, probably like a gray light color. That's what we have right now. It could be comp, it's a synthetic comp also.
I mean, our intent was a high-grade, fire-rated composition shingle that has the nice thick edges on it, not the thin stuff that they put on.
And you have
some
to
of the
be
things.
Class A fire rated.
Yeah.
Class, yeah.
And regarding the architectural style and the design, what was the idea behind the slope of the roof, like the 5 to 12? Was it purposeful? I saw on the sections that there's a 5-foot attic. What's the purpose behind it?
So we wanted to use a hip roof, and we needed to use a hip roof for solar access compliance. And what we find when we look at hip roofs, especially when they're on top of a second story, is when you go with much lower pitches than this, like you don't see the roof at all from the ground, and it ends up looking like a flat roof structure unless you're looking at it out of a drone. So we like to get a little bit higher pitch so that you can see that it has a pitched roof. And then what you can see in this section is we actually did go to a lower pitch on the lower set of roofs. So we just wanted to maintain sort of a hierarchy with the lower mass has this lower pitched roof, and then when you get up taller, it has a higher pitched roof, but it's also stepped back and it's a much smaller mass. And so even though there's a higher pitch, there just isn't enough geometry for it to get super high.
And what's the overhang on the, like, the second story roof? The overhang
The
of the
front
roofs?
entry
No,
porch?
like
No,
the
the
second
eaves.
story, the eaves,
Oh, 18 inches.
18 inches.
Are you sure they're 18 and not a foot?
We can get clarification on that. My question regarding that was that 15 feet to the west property boundary is from the wall, finish wall, not the overhang of the roof.
Not the overhang.
Okay. And I know it's in concept. Have you guys done the stormwater management studies?
No, we're doing those right now.
Okay.
Just in general on that, all of our proposed paving is permeable pavers, so the impermeable surfaces we're adding to this site are basically the roofs of the structures.
Okay. Thank you so much. That was all my questions.
Okay. We'll move to comments. Does anyone want to start? Otherwise, I'll start us. Okay. I think in general, looking at it, when you look at this site plan, it does make you wonder, like, do you have enough open space? But you are meeting the open yard requirement, and there have been plenty of sites that barely meet that with their limitations. I think looking at where you cited it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think the only other alternative would be to have had the ADU at the front and the residence completely in the back. But I think, the way that, like, our good neighbor guidelines, everything has been met, which is that you've cited it away from the other residences. It's where their open yard is. The second story is brought back and meets the setback for it. Looking through the windows, they are all small and placed at areas that people aren't gathering and looking out over other people's properties. I think for the other neighbors, it's on the furthest side away from them, or you've got significant screening. From our kind of visible size, bulk, and scale, you don't see it from the street. So this is an odd one for us purview-wise because it's the view from the street. And I think that that's something from public views of what that looks like. And I think that that's something that we will need is what you see from the public street, both the gate and how that process kind of looks. I do wonder if there's opportunity to shift the residents up or down to try to get another tree on the property somewhere, or to introduce more greenery throughout that driveway area. But that's more of a preference than I think a requirement. I think that it makes sense for the ADU and house to speak the same language, but I think that it could help break down the visible mass of those two to give it a slightly different tone or color, or just something to help differentiate between them. And because each one on its own is quite modest and small, and being able to see that separately could help. As far as FAR, if we were just taking the house, which is our purview, and not the garages, it wouldn't need that. But I think when I look at the things, I think the street elevation is helpful. Given the modest height compared to other residences, I don't think that we need story poles. Looking at the aerial and other kind of neighborhood context, a lot of these are double built. There's a lot of second stories, and some that are being proposed in the area. Those are some general comments, and maybe I'll move it. Board Member Graffiti.
Sure. Yeah, I think looking at this project, just for a second, taking it out of context with the neighbors in the neighborhood, I think standalone is a beautiful project. I have a slightly different opinion where I like the main residence in the ADU to match and appear the same, but we can talk more about that later. I like the style of the house. I think it is thoughtfully sited. I know it's challenging when things change and second stories going up, and I'll speak to kind of heights in my requests in a second, but in general, having a second story stepped back 15 feet is well above and beyond what our recommendation is and a lot of other second story projects that we have. The ADU is out of our purview, but I also think the fact that there's a single story building sited where it is helps with privacy concerns. I'm really sad about the trees, and I think that's such a beautiful oak, and the relief that it gives between the property lines, I wish something could be replanted over in that corner, even closer to the fence. And I don't know, again, all the specific codes or if something could be thought through there. I do think an olive where it's recommended is beautiful. So I don't want to change requirements to have to be an oak, but it would be helpful to have more kind of research done from your standpoint to see if there's any other sort of landscape tree buffer we can get. Also kind of ironic that there's such a mature oak grove behind the house that is allowed to remain.
It's further away.
Yeah, correct, but also a code that doesn't allow trees to be within 15 feet if you want to just maximize your building envelope. I don't know, something is hard, it doesn't sit well with me, but that's outside of my purview. Also, just side note, since we're talking about trees and because this came up in public comment,
Oh, guys, apologies. If you would mind stepping outside if you guys want to have a conversation. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, so just as an aside for public comment, if there is a street tree, and technically a palm tree is a grass, but for the sake of Santa Barbara, if there is a street tree or a tree in a front setback of a certain size, there is a process and a permit and everything, but we don't, this is a general statement. I just want to make sure that's clear to the public listening. If a tree were to be removed. from my standpoint, just to kind of help wrap my head around whether it's 83%, 85% garage included or not, just because of what we're seeing in the neighborhood. And I know there's second stories kind of on that side, but I personally would like to see a study of the 20 closest home FARs. I wouldn't ever ask that of an applicant if I didn't think it would be helpful for us in the process. I wouldn't just want to make you do all of these different things. Like, for me personally, it would be really helpful to see. I don't think that, I do think that the way everything is cited and the second story brought in is very thoughtful. But I personally, I'd like to see that. And then also a street elevation. I think that's what you mentioned, just to, as we're looking at heights, even though you are below our max kind of recommended, it would still be helpful to see how that height compares in the neighborhood. So those are my.
Could I use a second of my 3 minutes to ask a question that's relevant to trees? How does the board feel, and this will be a question ultimately for our landscape architect, but how does the board feel about potentially, I mean, there are some trees that are extremely vertical and have very narrow canopies.
Right.
That we might have places that we could comply with
Yeah.
that requirement. Do you want us to look at that? And does the
Possibly.
board
I think
support
there's like
that?
a native ironwood. I know there's a varieties that may be fire safe, especially native. So that would be great if you could look at that, especially in that one corner. I think the tree you're recommending is beautiful and in that area, but if there's something you could do in that corner, that would be very helpful.
Okay, I agree with all the comments that were made. I think it's worth studying the oak tree location with the configuration of the car garage, if it's possible. I'm trying to imagine where it is in the garage, and like what's the distance exactly. And if there's a possibility that the configuration change a little bit, if we can shift to the east side and we can keep that oak tree, it's the ideal.
Yeah, but it's off the canopy though, so I don't know that will be possible for the site at all.
But it's a sad thing to see that oak tree being removed. But I agree that if possible, another type of trees that will be fire resistant and everything can be replaced in other places, maybe more, so that the whole site from the public view, because this, when I'm looking at the site from Google Earth, that's like the oak tree is like popping out, and our purview is the public view. So if we can get more lush and greenery from the street view, that's the ideal situation. The other thing is the west side windows. I would like to ask the applicant to study the sill height. It might be because it's the bathrooms above the toilets. It might be worth studying the sill height. It's a little bit higher, so we have more privacy with a neighbor on the west. And I think it's worth studying the closest 20 homes FAR as well for the public and progressing the project more clearly. And as the project is not the site on the street side and it's like back side, if there's a silhouette of the street, and I want to hear from other board members, if it's like far enough that we see the elevation, the pitch of the roof and everything, or we can have like a cut section because it's like the side behind the front side to the street. So either works like to see the silhouette and that shows the backside, shows the proposed project, or a cut section that shows the neighbor to the west and east. Or you can show the neighbors on a site plan, because you don't have a site plan currently that shows the neighbor layout, and really simplify distances of the second story and the first story to the neighbors, and then we can have the street silhouette. That will really help us progress the project. Regarding the facade and the design of the style, I would, personal aesthetic, I agree with both being consistent on the ADU and the main house, and I can imagine the ADU being a darker color as well to break the massing. And The other thing that I'm thinking, and the applicant to study that, is because the board and batten proposed for the facade is a vertical board and batten, if there's a possibility of breaking, there's a band between the second and first and second story. That's just like a suggestion to study, and especially the renderings are showing very white, and you mentioned that it might be a more off-white color. So now the neighbors and everybody's looking at this, seeing the mass, it's exaggerating the size of the house. So if the render can be done with more details of like breaking the height of the mass and the more clear color that is in the design ideas, that shows that the color can be blend into the landscape, that will help a lot to understand the project. I think that was all my comments.
Yeah, I would just agree with that. I forgot to add that, but you had called that out, that considering a warmer color than the rendering. So completely agree. If you could come back with an updated rendering, or in the future, we'll talk about
Exactly.
color palette, but that would be great. Thanks.
Thank you.
I don't disagree about seeing the 20 closest homes for the FAR. I don't think we need story polls. Yeah, okay.
I agree as well.
And then I think Board Member Mosley, he's correct about, so typically we want to see that street elevation, but I think what we need to see at this street is just really the gate drawn up and how that relates just quickly to what's relatively next to it. But then at the next one, it would be helpful to either have an elevation or a site section that cuts through where we see the ADU as an existing building, your proposed residence, and then the distance to the next, just part of the next residence, just so we can kind of see where their height is and about how far. So I'll show you briefly on like Google Earth. It would be as if we can see where this height is, and that we see there's kind of a line, how tall your building is, how tall your building is, and then over to this building. And it can be just a line drawing. It doesn't have to be very detailed, but where we can see heights and the
So,
distance.
like, basically a partial street elevation kind of.
Street elevation,
Yeah,
but-
that goes
but
through those
from
three
your
houses.
property.
It would show our existing house at 1911 also, and then it would show like what part of this maybe comes up above that.
No, we don't need to see, I'm actually talking, will you go to your aerial?
Yeah, we can have a line there to show that.
Your straight, yeah, either that or where the building is, that might help. Okay, so as if we cut through your kitchen in your second story, or as if we saw, yes, correct. But it doesn't have to go as far as your blue line, just where we can see the height of that, where it starts of that other residence. It doesn't have to be the full. And then straight down to where we can then see where the other neighbor is as well.
Our building goes up.
Oh, you're making it like a, right now? Yeah, yeah,
Then it goes
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we get
But including the ADU, because we're using that as an existing building on your property essentially, as the way that we are studying this.
Because then from the elevation from the street, from the gate.
We just need to see the gate,
you'll see
yeah.
the ADU and
Right, right.
elevation.
And if you want, that could be an elevation of all of those, or it could be with just a line drawing of yours. So it could be where we see the garage and we see the front of the ADU, and then we just see the silhouette of the other two. And then you could like dash in where the gate is in front of it. That could also work. But I think, especially when we look at size, bulk, and scale, even looking at this aerial, you see it, is that there's so much flat yard separating your buildings from the next buildings. And that's helpful for us to see, but also with this, it will show us how much taller your second story may or may not be from your neighbors. And that, along with the FAR study, will help. And I think it'll be the 20 closest homes, and I don't know if we want to define that here, because they do have such a large distance from their neighborhood on the right side
And that Oak
to
Grove
the homes
in the-
behind them.
Yeah, maybe that street, the 20 close on the, in the
Along their
corner.
street.
Yeah.
It could be a circle with a diameter that is closest.
Well, that's typically how it would
Yeah.
be considered, but I think looking at the Oak Grove in the back, and I don't know the nature of how the street behind
Yeah, if you can provide enough support to say that these houses on the left are part of your neighborhood and that that should be part of your 20 closest homes, provide that support with it, or only count your neighborhood as what's to the right side of that aerial.
I think that problem's going to resolve itself. Like generally, I always do the adjacent lots at least, but because of the size differences in these lots, it's going to end up working out that way. Like if we.
Right, they're small on their
Yeah,
lots
we're going to go to
comparatively, even though they're
those
large.
huge lots that are
Right.
behind us will be part of it, but
Right.
most of the lots in it are going to be these ones that are down along Mountain.
I just have a question for Chair Lewis. So for the street silhouette, your request is just to go partial to the neighbor. Is that just because assumption the ridge line is the
It's
same?
straight,
Okay.
right. If it starts to get higher, like looking at this area that we're seeing, you can continue past and go more. So as we go to the right, there's what appears to be a 2-story and then a 2 with or like it goes a little bit higher. If you can keep going on your street elevation if that is supportive.
That was just going to be
Right.
my question is where do we draw it? But I think that could be, it's just helpful to see like on that side of the street, how does everything compare to make sure we don't have,
A tower,
yeah, exactly.
Okay, but I just want to make sure we're using the houses that are back where this house is, right?
Exactly.
Not, because we keep saying
Exactly.
street
We're
elevation.
saying street with quotes.
Okay,
It's
got
as
it.
if your street were where your house
Got it.
is.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's why I meant like a cut
Yes.
section of the
Yes.
backside. And it will be helpful to have the property line and the setback line on
dashed in
that.
somewhere.
So, and dimensions and heights, that would be great.
Yeah, for the sake of the motion, we'll call it the second row of houses, a section or elevation of those in row.
And Chair Lewis, I also just wanted to clarify in the FAR, we have the street silhouette elevation, the panoramic photo simulations.
We don't need the panoramic.
Okay, I just wanted
Yeah,
to clarify that. Thank you.
and we don't need the story poles. Okay, then I'll move to make a motion to continue this project indefinitely to the full board with the following comments. The board would like to see a silhouette section or elevation of the second row of houses along Mountain Ave so that we can see the height of the neighbors in relation to the height of the buildings on this proposed property and the distance of those houses from these proposed structures. The board would like to see an elevation of the proposed gate with photos of how that will relate to the houses on Mountain Ave. The board recommends a warmer color for the color palette and considering a way to break up the second story and first story. Study the sill heights at the west elevation and the size of the windows to help reduce visibility to the neighboring property. In general, the board sees that most of these windows are in areas that you won't be congregating and they feel generally appropriate for privacy. The board would like the applicant to propose ways to mitigate the lost trees on the property and understands limitations with fire safety. If at all possible, the board would like to see an oak. The board appreciates the second-story setback and finds the 15-foot offset from the property line to be in keeping with the single-family design guidelines. The board would like an FAR study of the 20 closest residences and would like a diagram of which residences are included in that. The board understands the size of the driveway for maneuverability, but would be open to seeing ways of breaking up the large expanse of hardscape. The board would like to see the design and heights of the fences proposed on the perimeter.
I will second that motion.
Okay, we will take a vote. Board Member Graffiti?
Yes.
Board Member Moslehy?
Yes.
Chair Lewis?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As a general note, especially for public comment, I think that it would be helpful to review the posted single-family design guidelines. That is what is in our purview, and that would be the most helpful if there is any feedback to provide. And with that, we will end our single-family design board meeting for July 28th.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.